England versus India. The Cricket Badger Test Match Daily Podcast. Can Joe Root's England dominate on home soil? 5 mouth-watering test matches. Can Virat Kohli's India conquer the final frontier? Loving to talk test cricket every day.
Hello everybody, it's the Cricket Badger. It's James bringing you the Cricket Badger podcast. And as always, it's our England against India test match dailies. I have to confess something to you before we start today. I have been working on football pretty much all afternoon and evening, so I am very reliant on my fan badges to bring us the flavour of the game as we go through this podcast. I know the scores. India obviously finishing on 181 for 6. They lead by 154 runs as we, embark on day 5 tomorrow. And looks like England are on top of this fixture. Joined by Mark, Abai and Anand today on the podcast. Good to have you with me, gentlemen. Let's start with you, Abai. I asked you before we came on air, England on top of this game. Your answer was yes, wasn't it?
Absolutely. Right now, England is ahead. Even though India's hopes are still there on Rishabh Pant. So they'd hope Pant strikes it well, makes a quick fire 50 for them. And then they ask England to probably chase around 220, 250. That's what India would like. But as of now, England have their noses ahead.
I did some research the other day in a rather light-hearted manner, Abai. I put into Google long-tailed animals, and I think I got an Asian grass lizard or something came up as probably proportionate to its body, has the longest tail. And India are kind of like that a little bit, aren't they? As you say, Rishabh Pant is shouldering a lot of the burden of trying to extend that lead because Shami, Bumrah, Ishant and Mohammad Siraj are not necessarily capable of adding too many.
Yes, Ishant can play sometimes he can play gritty innings, but expecting him to bat is baffling. So, yes, I don't support that decision to, play, have a longer tail. I would have gone for more batters. And that's why me and Anand would have wanted Ravi Ashwin to play in place of one of the seamers. Which one to drop was a difficult one. I agree, like we discussed yesterday. But then that would have given little more depth. Now Jadeja has been taken by Moin quite cheaply, and now India is in a problem.
Because Alan, this tail is long, isn't it? I don't think is there a longer tail in the history of Test match cricket that you can think of? Because we've got, I think the best average amongst the four is about 10.5, 11 or somewhere in that region. Jasprit average is the least at 3 point something, but you wouldn't want to bet your house on them achieving too much at the rear end of this innings, would you?
I mean, long tail it is, but come on, let's give them some kudos for some entertaining batting. I mean, if you've seen Shami get out there, Shami's going to swing with his eyes closed.
You've got a very strange definition of what's entertaining.
Well, and then Shami's going to be there. I think Siraj is in the same mold. So, after Ishant, who's the resident blocker, like Abai just mentioned, the others are, interesting. And Ishant, at the very best, could be called a very decent number 11. So the others, you can understand, are, from their batting ability, are just far down the order there.
Yeah, I mean, I said on Twitter the other day there may be 10, 11, 12, 13 in reality, maybe even 11, 12, 13, 14, if you're going to be really harsh. Mark, from the flip side of this, you're our only English fan on this podcast tonight, but the Rishabh Pant danger, his potential effect, if he can get a little bit of resistance out of the tail and do his stuff that we know he can do, they could still extend this lead, couldn't they, India, and could cause England some problems because they won't want to chase too many on the final day.
Well, that's right. I mean, I think if Pant bats for an hour or so and, if he bats for 90 minutes, then they'd probably have a lead of 230, 240 by then anyway. So Pant's perfectly capable of knocking the ball about, even if it's a new ball. In fact, with a new ball is more likely to take it on rather than the old ball in some respects. So he's a very dangerous batsman, but he always gives you a chance. You know, you always feel you're in the game with him, particularly in English conditions. So I think England will be obviously wary of trying to make sure they have fields that restrict into singles where they can to attack the other batters, to attack the tail. Trying not letting Farmer strike too much at the end of the overs, obviously. But I think
we saw in the first innings, Jadeja had the similar kind of position, didn't he, with the tail for India? And I don't think he necessarily managed that particularly well. He didn't really hit the big shots, and he didn't rotate the strike. And gradually, he lost partners, and in the end, India were all out. I mean, Alex has just come on. You can. Any of the listeners out there, watchers out there, you can make your comments. You can ask us questions as we go through this podcast. Alex has made a point really more than anything. He says, I wouldn't want us to chase more than 210 is his view, Mark. I mean, even 154, which is the current lead, could be problematic with a bad start, couldn't it?
Oh, yeah, of course it can. I mean, absolutely. Anything over 200 is going to be a tough chase. I mean, historically on the last day, it's very difficult to get those runs, particularly at Lords. But India. I mean, the two guys that mentioned it there. There's no Ashwin in the side, and I think that could come back to haunt them because tonight Moeen did get a little bit of turn. The pitch is slow. It is dry. You know, if India get a lead of 220, 230, Ashwin, as well as being able to take wickets, is a very difficult bowler to get away. He can bowl well in all conditions. So I don't think Jadeja, obviously, is not. I don't think he's as good a bowler as Ashwin. Probably hasn't got the control of Ashwin. So they may lose control of the game, India, because they've not got Ashwin in the side. So I think England are the slight favourites, if I'm being honest with you. I think they are the slight favourites tomorrow. And actually, if they're chasing, 210, 220 in, 70 overs, sometimes a shorter chase is actually better than a long chase psychologically.
No, I agree.
So,
good evening to Sajad. He's been in touch on the messages. He says hi. He says he's from Pakistan. He loves England. Well, good to have you with us, Sajad, as we go through tonight's podcast. Abai, talk about Ashwin there. I found it baffling from an English perspective. After the winter, I know these are different surfaces, but England have a fear of spin and they have a fear of Ashwin because they know what he can do. And a lot of the games played in the head. I think it would have been an asset for India to have Ashwin even on an unturning track because they have a lot of respect for him. And certainly on a track which is turning a little bit towards the end at Lords, which Lords can do, Ashwin could be a real handful for England because I think a lot of the batsmen are beaten against him before they even start.
Very much. I find it very baffling as well. I am a very big fan of Ravi Ashwin. And the reason I really like him is because he's mentally very tough. As we saw in the series Down Under, when India won the series, there was always, this thought that Ashwin will be stronger against the left-handers. But he did so well against Smith and Labuschagne.
Don't you think sometimes, Abai? I mean, I know there is that thing with spin where you're moving it one way, you potentially have a better record against right-handers or left-handers, depending on your type of bowling. But if you're a good spinner, you cause anybody trouble, don't you?
Absolutely. His dodgy innings to save the test match at Sydney. So the mental toughness aspect, I'm sure with the kind of person Ashwin is, he can actually support Virat with a lot of good thoughts as well during a long test match like these. So Ashwin is a must-have for me as well. Team management would have thought something, but now after hearing Mark as well, and all of us have realized Moeen got the ball to turn as well. So we feel even more dejected that why Ashwin is not playing. And he's a dodgy batter as well. So this long tail question could have also been solved.
I wonder as well with the third test at Headingley, how India will approach that, and because there is a perception with Headingley that it is a seamer's paradise. It's not anymore. It's actually a very good batting track, and often the spinners get a lot out of that track. If India go in without really getting a good look at the recent test matches there, they could be lulled into the same mistake again.
I mean, it's certainly possible because Kohli's comments have mentioned that he likes the way the attack is structured right now. Now, I think some of the decision making is centered on what happened in the past. So, if you think about the last Lord's Test that we had in 2018, we turned up with two spinners. Kuldeep Yadav was the second spinner, and it turned out to be a green wicket. It was overcast the whole time, great humidity, ball was swimming around, hooping around, and there was no real point to having that second spinner. However, I think this is slightly different. When we looked at the weather at Lords, when we knew what was going to be out there, looking at the pitch, it wasn't a terribly green pitch. At that point, I think, maybe there should have been some thought given to Ashwin. I almost suspect they've gone back to look at statistics and seen what has happened in the past. With Headingley, I mean, I think they need to again take a look at this and see how are the bowlers shaping up and see whether Ashwin can be accommodated. Because apart from the fact that Ashwin is just, to me, the best spinner in the world right now, Ashwin also gives a little bit with the bat. And while you might say that
it's more than a little bit with the bat, isn't he? He can hold the bat properly, whereas the other four that we're talking about can't, can they? Really?
Well, the man's a tinker. So if you look back at his early batting exploits, he actually got a couple of centuries. I think he might have got a century in West Indies or so. He can really bat, but he tinkered with this technique so much that, in the last couple of years, things sort of changed. But I felt in Australia, again, he tinkered back and made some changes and looked a little more confident. So Ashwin is just that thinking man's cricketer, right? So he's always tweaking, changing things around. So I think he could give something with the bat. So unless it's a green seamer and we know that it's going to be, there's a prospect of rain, humidity is going to be high, maybe it's time to take a look at Ashwin.
I mean, you've seen Headingley, Mark. It isn't the Headingley of the 80s, is it, where you pack the attack with a load of trundlers and try and kind of just swing and nip off the seam. It's actually yielded quite a lot of good batting and high scores in recent years.
Yeah, in some respects, it's a very similar pitch to Lords these days. It's quite slow, it's quite flat. There's big scores in county games, big scores in international games. Obviously, you've got the overhead conditions, and it's cloudy, and there's a bit of moisture in the air. That can apply to all English grounds where it changes the conditions fundamentally, because we know cricket's a game played by the weather and the environment, as we said the other day. But Headingley, particularly this time of the year, mid-August, is likely to be a flat pitch, and also England have asked the groundsmen to actually take grass off the wickets for this series. They don't want them as green as previous series because they want to get used to playing on flatter wickets when they get to Australia and when they go to subcontinent. So that's been a little bit of a bone of contention.
And we've seen today, Mark, your namesake, Mark Woods, how important he can be on tracks like that, because if you've got that added pace, and he's regularly now bowling at over 90, 93, 94. I saw somebody on the commentary early on today describe one of his balls as a slower ball when it was 89 on 90 or something ridiculous. It was bonkers. But that extra pace is a threat on tracks like that, isn't it?
Yeah, it's strange in our WhatsApp chat when we talk about the cricket. I said, just before Wood got his second wicket, I said, now Wood needs to make something happen. He's a point of difference. And just by luck he did. But yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of Mark Wood. I'm a big fan also of test sides having that point of difference within their side, whether that be a mystery spinner or somebody with express pace. Mark Wood can come on and he can have a burst of wicket and change a game. He's got that express pace and point of difference that the other bowlers don't have. And
I don't care who you are, whether you're Rohit Sharma, Virat Kohli, anybody, nobody likes facing 93, 94 miles an hour.
The point in case today was Rohat. I mean, obviously they set the trap for him, and Rohat got caught on the boundary at Trent Bridge playing a similar shot. Today he played the first, hits it, but they know that Rohit kind of hooks off the front foot with low hands.
Yeah.
And when you're hooking off the front foot with low hands, you can never be in control of the shot.
I mean, that's the case, Abhay, isn't it? Because Rohit's batting, Abhay, is one of his strongest suits is the pull and the hook. He makes so many runs. He's a class act when it comes to that shot. But sometimes your strength can be your weakness. And England have sussed him out twice, as Mark said. And the shot today, I thought, when he got out, was silly, Rohit Sharma, because the plan was there. It was obvious what England were trying to do, and they just suckered him into it.
Absolutely. So these kind of challenges, he will face a lot of them. It's this short ball right now, and it could be something else later. We have to understand that Rohit hasn't had a massive test match experience either. He's been more of a, the white ball specialist, or the white ball legend, you can call, for India. So he will go through these things where, bowlers will try to find him out in test match conditions in different parts of the world. uh, Mostly he was part of the 15, or he was batting at number 6. But I've been very impressed the way he has taken the opener's role right from the Australia series to this series. He's been scoring some good runs. Now he's got the
Abai,
problem.
I I know exactly what you're saying, and he has had that label of being a white ball specialist. But this is his 41st Test match. He's a vastly experienced cricketer. It's not like you're taking some 17-year-old kid out there who's being suckered into this. This is a vastly experienced player.
Correct. I did give this point a thought today, and maybe I'm wrong, but even though it's 41 Test matches, it's spread across a lot of years. I think the continuity part has started from a year onwards.
Yeah.
And this is his first major series in England as a regular playing 11.
That's a fair point. That
personnel.
is a fair point. It was nice to see, from my perspective, I've got a lot of admiration for Cheteshwar Pujara under a huge amount of pressure in that Indian lineup at the moment. Made 45 in a little bit more of his kind of customary fashion, Abai. And KL Rahul, the other man that's under pressure in that Indian side with 61. I mean, I wasn't watching that partnership, but I saw some of the comments on the WhatsApp group about, I think Knuckles said you can tell they're batting like they're under pressure, but they still stayed in there and got some runs today, which is a feather in their cap.
Kudos to them. They will always be under pressure. If you're playing for India, you'll be under massive pressure always. One, you've got so many fans looking at you, at your performances. Number two, there's so much of depth in Indian cricket right now that somebody else is always ready to take your place. So
well, you've got 1.3 billion people there waiting to take the place, haven't you?
Absolutely. So these guys are under massive pressure already. For them, for Rahul to grab his opportunity in the first Test match, and now this Test match as well, he scored 100 in the first innings. He missed out in the second innings. Is great. He's been waiting in the wings for far too long. Everybody knows he's very good, but to really perform on your very first opportunity, because Mayank Agarwal got injured, was special. And again today, Pujara and Rahane, I mean, the sword was on their necks, but they did play well. They did play a session without giving their wickets, which was great for Indian fans.
Anand and Abai, I'll start with you, Anand. It's Indian Independence Day today, isn't it? Happy Independence Day to both of you guys. Is that a major festival celebration? Is that something that you two are going to be partying all the way through the night with, or is that something a little bit more subdued, Anand?
Well, a couple of different ways to look at it. Since I moved to the US, it's been more of a culture. We actually have events that go on, especially if it's over the weekend. If it's not on the weekend, we'll have some events on the weekend where you'll get a lot of there'll be cultural fairs and things like that. Oftentimes, I used to lead a nonprofit organization. We used to have events that centered around it as well. So more of a place to kind of meet up and, kind of just celebrate where India is now compared to, where we started. So, it certainly is different. Growing up in India, I thought it was, again, a major day. Schools used to be off. We used to have all sorts of different events and activities out there. So, certainly much bigger profile in India. But here I know that pretty much everybody does something around the day, and there's some sort of cultural significance to it. So would have been good to see a good Indian repose today. But, I mean, England played great. And, you can only say well played to somebody who's done well.
So what have you got planned today? Because you're in the US, aren't you? So you're a little bit earlier than I am at the moment in the UK. Have you got anything planned for this evening?
Unfortunately, not this time. Usually, with COVID and all, we're just taking a few precautions. Right now, in Atlanta, where I'm based, we're seeing about 7,000 cases a day or so. So things have sort of, started to rise up again. So things are sort of slow this year, and as well as last year they were. But previous years, we usually have something or the other. Whether it's a flag hoisting ceremony at the Indian Embassy or just cultural fairs like that. There used to be tons of activities around. I just think this time a little low key.
And Abba, I think you're an hour ahead of me in Sweden, aren't you? Which is where you're based. I assume that what's it going to be? It's going to be coming up towards 9 o'clock there. On the basis that you're on this chat, you're not going to have a wild night?
No, quite subdued. relate to whatever Anand has said, since we've also settled in Europe. Of course, there's a lot of excitement and some festival kind of a scenario somewhere in the country. But no, we are quite subdued on it, and very proud of the way country has grown from 1947 to this point, like what Anand also mentioned. So that always gives you a proud feeling. You always think about cricket as well, how much you've grown in cricket, as we are all Badgers. So feels good, but not a holiday here. So it's anyway a Sunday.
Well, from the Cricket Badger podcast, to all of the Indians watching this, have a very happy day, whatever you're planning to do. Whether you like Anand and Abai and staying in, or whether you have got anything planned, enjoy yourselves and have a good time. Mark, every day is a party day for you. I know. I can see you're on the way out, I'm sure, to do something probably that we shouldn't repeat. But getting back to the test match, all of you guys have been telling me that Moeen's been getting a bit of turn at Lords towards the end of today. I think Abai said that his wickets came from balls that maybe didn't turn so much. But is that a danger for England, that maybe Jadeja might get a little bit from it? Because I know he is renowned as a white ball bowler more than a red ball bowler, but his record in Test cricket is pretty decent.
Yeah, it is. I mean, he's still a good bowler. We're just saying that Ravi Ashwin's probably the best spin bowler in the world. But as you know, Jadeja's got a very good record in Test match cricket. I believe that most of his wickets have come on the subcontinent rather than abroad. But yeah, he's a fine bowler, and if it's turning, then he's obviously a threat. And he's also, he's also got a lot of 5-wicket hauls in second innings of Test matches. So he's an obvious threat. So yeah, he's a big threat. And Moeen did turn it tonight a little bit at the end of the day, and I think England at last have realised, as we were saying on the podcast last week, that all-seam strategy, if they'd have kept to that all-seam strategy, which they were going to do up until Tuesday night, would have been right on the backside in this Test match.
Moeen's a class act. I mean, we talked about him not playing red ball since February and stuff, but class is permanent kind of thing, isn't he? He's a good cricketer, and he knows what he's doing with that ball, and he's got a good record against India, as everybody keeps saying. Anna, there's a point being made on the chat from Alex. I think Pujara, the Pujara approach, he says, can hurt India on occasions because he puts pressure on the other batsmen. I mean, I guess you could say the same about the kind of Sibley approach for England. It puts pressure on the other batsmen to score runs. But I would say on a day like today, where you are looking to bat long, a Pujara in your side doesn't do you any harm, does it?
No, I actually think he batted great. And we actually need Pujara to do what he just did today. When we're looking at this third innings, after the first 3 wickets, we also need to bat time. And this is the strength of Pujara's, right? So I think that we actually need Pujara there, because the team is surrounded by players who can really hit their strokes. So KL Rahul, Rohit Sharma, Virat Kohli, Rahane for that matter, and Pant and Jadeja. Each and every one of them can up the ante when necessary. To me, Pujara is actually great, and he is the foil who allows other stroke makers to flower around him. Even today, I think Pujara got 45 odd runs and 200 odd balls. But in the meantime, Rahane, once he got in, had started to up the ante, was trying to rotate the strike and things like that. So I think the solidity that Pujara provides is very important. I think where things have changed for Pujara is typically he starts out slow. But as he starts to catch up, you'll see more and more strokes and more and more shot making, and you would see some of those bigger tons. What has changed in recent times is Pujara is getting to about 50, 60 odd, and then he gets out. And I think that's sort of hurting some of his perceptions, because that's typically when he starts to accelerate, and he hasn't been able to do so. Part of that, I would say, is he's played New Zealand and New Zealand, England and England, Australia and Australia, and then, obviously England and India. But even then, I think Leach bowled particularly beautifully to Pujara.
Yeah, I mean, both India and England have had a bit of a crazy run against tough opposition, haven't they? With England obviously going to Australia in the winter. It doesn't get too much easier, I don't think, with that. Let's finish off. I want to talk a bit about county cricket. I know me and Mark have got rather different views on this. There was a piece in the Daily Mail, I think, today about how 12 of the 18 counties are voting or prepared to vote in favour of retaining the conference-style system in the county championship for at least another year, to see how it goes, rather than revert back to the first, second division setup that we've had in the past. Obviously, the conference system was primarily brought in because of COVID. and the chance to get, well, last year a short Bob Willis Trophy into the summer, so they could actually have some red ball cricket for 4 days. And then obviously it was retained this season as well. We've got very different opinions on this, Mark, haven't we? Because I'm in favour of this conference, and I think the conference is a good thing in that it gives everybody, all of the 18 counties, an opportunity to win the thing. And potentially can raise the standards across the board. You've got a completely contrary view to that, haven't you?
Yeah, I have in many respects. I think initially the conference was.
I think just the word "yes" would have been enough there.
Yes, I have got a different view. I think the conference was thought up last year on a whim in a pandemic. They had the Bob Willis Trophy, and they thought, "Oh, this is a."
Some of the best days I've had have been on a whim, Mark. Some of the best decisions I've ever made.
I don't think it was really thought through, and I think it's the usual thing. Let's change the first class game. Let's change the format, this and the other. And I don't think it's benefiting first class cricket. It's breeding mediocrity.
You say that, and I had a conversation earlier on today with somebody. I actually think it's potentially breeding. What's the opposite of mediocrity? Excellence. Because I think at the moment you've got a 2-tier structure, and you've got the likes of Leicestershire and some of the other counties who are effectively settled for being in the second division of the Championship, and then they, because they don't see the Championship as being that important, that's kind of shoved to one side, and they invest it more in their white ball teams because that's where they can win trophies. And Leicestershire have done that in the past. The Leicester Foxes have. I think still the most decorated T20 Blast side in the county game. Northants have won the T20 Blast and probably gone down that route a little bit at times as well. But I think when they see that this is going to be a longer term thing, and that at the start of each season they do have the potential to at least get into that top division, if not win the thing, it does give those sort of counties a little bit more of an incentive to actually think, right, let's get some red ball players into this team. Let's see if we can actually do something in this competition.
I disagree. I think
I thought you might.
I don't think there's enough quality in the English game at the moment for to sustain it. I think you need the best playing the best if you want to improve standards. Essentially, I think when England had a very strong Test match side between the years of around 2000 and when two divisions come around between 2001 2002. And central contracts came around, and it was played at the right times on good wickets in two divisions. England actually produced a very strong side. Produced lots of batters, lots of bowlers, who all went through that particular system. So in the last 5 or 6 years, when the red ball's been marginalised to the end of the season, and it's been messed about with, and pitches have got worse, that's been eroding away. And I see the conference as a further erosion of that. I don't think.
Don't you think though that the marginalisation and what is evident to me as being the red ball becoming secondary and the white ball becoming obviously the cash cow and more lucrative, and therefore taking these summer months in July and August, that's the problem, not the structure of the Championship. And in a way, the conference or the first and second division setup is almost irrelevant. Because if you're going to stick the Championship in April and May and stick it at the other end of the season in September and October or whatever you do, whatever structure you have, you're kind of lowering the standards regardless, aren't you?
Well, yeah, there is that problem. I absolutely agree with that the actual structure and when it's played is ridiculous. And I think that will be looked at some point in time, particularly now there's more pressure from people like Root, Stuart Broad in the paper today, all those types of people beginning to talk about it. But I really don't think.
Even Tom Harrison, to be fair to him, in what I thought was an awful interview on Sky, where he blamed COVID for everything and looked a bit sweaty and a bit edgy, he admitted that the structure is not ideal this summer. So hopefully the ECB will try and do something at least about that next summer. Going to be interesting to say. It'd be interesting to know which 12 counties want the conference system. If it is, in your head, I'm sure you've got a hierarchy of who is probably first division down to 18th, maybe being Leicestershire or Derbyshire or whoever. It would be interesting to know if it was the bottom 12 that had voted for the conference and the top 6.
No, for me, there's not enough quality. There's 475 professionals in the English county grade. I think that's too many full-time professionals, if I'm being perfectly honest with you. There's not enough quality. There's a lot of poor cricket. I don't want reduced counties, but I want to see
Spread the net wide. Make sure you get as many potential quality players in as possible.
maybe, but a lot of these players are finished in the mid-20s. It's not fair for them. They don't have great careers, and then they've got nothing. I just think we need the best.
So you're saying to me that a 26-year-old journeyman county professional who's enjoying an average county career should just be chopped off and told to go out to pasture?
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. I wouldn't say that person should be a full-time professional cricketer. I'm not saying he shouldn't be a cricketer. I'm not saying he can't play cricket, but I really don't think there's the quality to sustain nearly 500 full-time professional cricketers in the UK, particularly when it's not being played in state schools, particularly when we've got decreasing participation. That may change in future years, who knows? But we need the best playing the best on good wickets. And I don't see how a conference system where counties don't have much to play for after the middle of July will do that. If you look
I'm going to have the last word on this discussion because it's my podcast. But I think that the conference system actually could potentially raise the standards across the board. And I think most of the things you said are actually structural problems and are actually, if we actually invest in the county game, if we play it in the right months of the season, if we actually have championship cricket all the way through the summer to support the international team above, a lot of the things that you say in terms of raising the standard would actually automatically, not necessarily completely heal themselves, but it would get better and it would look better. And I think fans would enjoy it. I think, we see so many fans. I see so many comments on Twitter. I've just seen a match at Old Trafford, for example, in May. And this is the last time I'm going to see a county championship match in Manchester until August the something or other. And that has got to be wrong. We've got counties who are out the Royal London One Day Cup, who at the moment have got fit and firing cricketers who want to play the game, spectators that want to watch them, and there's 3 weeks without cricket being played for even home or away for those teams, and that has got to be wrong.
Never disagree with that. I just don't think the conference is the way to go down. If you look at who's at the top of the conferences now, it's Test match grounds, First Division clubs. It's just reproduced.
It will be, Mark, initially, because they are the teams that have got the better squads at the moment because they've been in Division 1. But what I'm suggesting is if you actually stick with this conference system for a while, you will encourage the teams further down the food chain to actually take it more seriously and become better and try and compete with those top guys. And I don't think that as an ambition is a bad thing in the county game. And that is the last word. You're not coming back at me. You're not coming back at me on this time because we're going to move back on to the Test match. Lords, Day 5, India taking that lead into the final day. Abai, where do we stand now in terms of your prediction on who's going to win this game?
This time, I'm not going to predict on basis of where the match really stands. I'm actually thinking India is going to win.
So you're just going to basically let your heart rule your head on this one?
Yes, I think so. I think probably we are in for a collapse, but somewhere my mind tells me that can India take Joe Root cheaply? Let's see.
Answer to that's no, isn't it, on the evidence of what we've seen so far? But we'll find out, won't we, tomorrow?
Yeah.
154 runs ahead, Anand. Say the last 4 wickets fell in a massive heap tomorrow and the lead was 170. Could you see India winning on that basis?
Well, if you think about it, like you mentioned yesterday, India needed 158 runs to win in the first test, and you clearly said that England's on top. So, I mean, now India's 154 runs ahead. I say India's on top, isn't it? Same logic.
This is a lesson to your listeners. Never put anything on Twitter or never put anything out in public because it comes back to bite you. People like Anand have long memories.
Talk about parity, by the way. 150 odd, both 4 days are finished, and that's where we stand. But I think England certainly are slightly ahead at this point. If Ashwin was there, I actually think India was still in with a fair chance with even a small total, with the pitch being the way it is. With Ashwin being out of the picture, if India collapse quickly, I think England certainly on top. So
I've been going for the draw all the way through our broadcast so far. I struggle to see how this one can be a draw now from where we are. Particularly with India's tail. It's not like India can bat for maybe 3 hours and take it deep into the afternoon. So it has to be a positive result one way or the other. I would be nervous with England chasing, say, 220 or more. As Alex said earlier on his comment, I think that would be a challenge for England. But I reckon England maybe just slightly ahead, as Anand says. So I'm going to go with England. Mark, are you in the English camp or the Indian camp?
I think England are slight favourites. I think no Ashwin, no party, essentially. They're going to really miss Ashwin tomorrow. Not his wicket taking ability, but his control as well. I think they might miss that in the middle of the afternoon. Yeah, I won't rule out the draw. I mean, India's last 4 wicket could bat till lunch yet. You don't know, do you? So all 3 results are possible. But as it stands at the moment, if England use the new ball, if Anderson turns up tomorrow,
If India's last 4 wickets bat till lunch, I will change my mind on the conference system, Mark.
yeah, England are the slight favourites, but who knows? I mean, it's been a great Test match. That's all I can say.
I mean, and that is the bottom line, and that's how we're going to end today, because we have had 4 days of absolutely superb Test match cricket, and we have a day 5 ahead of us, which could go any which way. None of us know at the moment, and that's the beauty of this game. You get these sways in ascendancy. You get one team on top. You get Root knocking it all over the place. Then India bounce back, and it has been a terrific Test match, and that is why we all love Test match cricket. And whether you're Indian or English, you can't be not enjoying this game at Lord's. It is absolutely fantastic. Mark, Abai, and Anand, as always, thank you very much indeed for joining me. Thanks for watching out there, everybody. Thanks for listening on the podcast, which will be out later as well. And we will see you tomorrow after day 5, when we will know who has won or drawn or lost this Test match at Lord's. But it's been an absolute cracker. Enjoy the day tomorrow. Enjoy the cricket. And we will see you tomorrow after day 5 at Lord's.